I think the best conversations are, moderated ones are conversations. And it's not like question and answer. We're just going to open it up. And I'm very well known for going off script. So I'm giving you your heads up that whatever you think I'm asking you, because I didn't know I was going to take this position, we're going to go off script. And I want to get everyone involved in this conversation because it is about branding, and every one of us is a brand. Like you think about it's just your product, but you are the product, right? And so we're all a brand. So let's have this conversation where ask questions, start thinking about what you want to know. I know that I did some branding just outside for a minute, just letting people know that. And, and I'm going to use this example because I thought it was just so incredibly important to say what we talked about outside.
Oh, gosh.
Rosie, my mother's name is Rosalie.
Yeah, hi, everyone. My name is Rosie. Gosh,
Come stand up here. I want everyone to see you.
Oh, gosh.
Come on, let's go. It starts right now. Let's do it. Brand you.
Hi, everyone. And so I just came up and said thank you, and then we started having an organic conversation, and I was talking about my passion project, and I explained the name, but then
What was the name?
So the name was the Firm Handshakers Club, and then...
Firm Handshakers Club.
Yeah. So it's too long. That was how the conversation went. And then I was explaining the reason.
Rosie said, do I like the name? I said, it's too long.
Yeah, exactly. And then I was explaining the reason behind the name, that I used to work in the super yacht industry, which is a very male-dominated industry. And so I learnt to give a firm handshake. And then we had the conversation around it doesn't need to be a firm handshake because we're women and we just need a handshake. And what we do is built on relationships. It's not built on signing contracts and doing deals. So, yeah. Thanks for the conversation. Thank you for challenging me to be up here because I feel quite nervous but very excited.
And you were amazing. And by the way, that's your elevator pitch. And so it is really important to know who you are, what you do, and to own it. Yes. And so I said, why we don't say men have firm handshakes. Why are we putting ourselves in a firm handshaker club?
Yes.
It's a handshake club.
Yeah.
And the difference between men and women, men do deals, women create relationships.
Yes.
And a handshake is built on trust.
Yes.
You don't need to say, sign my contract. It's about trust, which is the power of an amazing leader.
Yes.
And by the way, that leader happens to be a woman.
Yes.
So it's the handshake club.
Yes.
Boom.
Thank you.
Shake my hand and let's close the deal.
And the idea behind it is to build confidence, and my passion project is around building financial literacy. So, yeah, I think definitely in the right room and very moved. Thank you.
And so the power of a brand is just so incredibly important. We became top 10 on LinkedIn with our voice for women. I'm number 1 for menopause. And globally, I don't know, I'm top 20. And I had no idea about the power of LinkedIn, by the way. We were on Instagram, and we were on, I think, TikTok, and, of course, YouTube. Google's a big partner of ours, so definitely YouTube. And then I discovered LinkedIn, and I'm like, it's so much more than just a vehicle for directory kind of thing. It is about thought leadership. And we were, I think, the first to start having taboo topics on LinkedIn, because if you don't talk about them, they'll be taboo. If you talk about them, they'll be ordinary. So menopause. I started talking about menopause and had no idea. This actually was funny. I'm going to say this story because I'm going to play you for a minute with personal anecdotes. I was one of few women in this Fortune 500 CEO closed door meeting. It was only 50 people invited. And I was on the stage and it was all men. And all of a sudden I'm like, and menopause, like, one of these topics that is so not talked about, but why? It's just like a normal everyday thing. I said, I don't know what men have. Men never have any problems, but women are too bossy, too bitchy. We have menopause, we have our periods, we're too emotional, we're too everything. I said, what do men have? Do they have penis problems? Or no one talks about any of their issues. Anyway, the whole crowd starts busting up. Afterwards, this guy comes over to me, an older gentleman, and are we being broadcast to the world or what?
This is off the record.
I broadcast to the world even off the record, but I just wanted to know where I am. Okay, so this guy comes over. He's an older gentleman. He must have been like 70. So not much older than me, but little gray hair, and comes over and goes, oh my God, I love you. He says, I've been following you for the longest time on LinkedIn. I said, you have? He says, yes, because you talk about menopause. And I'm like, do you have menopause? He says, no, but I'm the CEO of Amgen. And he says, and you make it so real. we make it so clinical, and you talk about it in everyday ways. Will you be an influencer for us? I said, I never thought I'd be an influencer for menopause, but I am. So there you have it. And so it became a thought leadership platform, and I'm obsessed with LinkedIn. So here we go, off script. I'll give you a minute to think, because you don't know what I'm going to ask you. But I want you to tell everyone who you are, what you do, and then tell me what we might not know about you on LinkedIn.
Okay, well, I'll start. And before I finish in my introduction, I'd love to add something about your menopause point, which I think is really important to women in Australia. So my name is Angelea Priestley, and I run a news platform called Women's Agenda. So we do daily news, but we put a women's lens, a female lens over the news, and we cover politics, business, climate, leadership, entrepreneurship, and we cover it from the perspective of women. So we've been at the budget lockup. We've looked at the budget in the last couple of days, really trying to analyse what it means for women around things like investments on domestic and family violence, which there was not enough, climate mitigation, and how we can address the risks facing women in the event of disasters in Australia. So we'll look at those budget papers, and we'll really try to take a look and think, what does it actually mean? How are we getting the investments that we need? Are we getting the investments that we need compared to investments that are going elsewhere? I want to just get to the menopause thing, because one thing that was really exciting in the budget was the investments in women's health. So everyone probably saw that. There's been a lot of talk about in the last few weeks around women's health, menopause especially. And I heard the Treasurer talk about women's health in his budget speech last night. And I was like, we don't really hear treasurers, especially male treasurers, up there discussing women's health. And the reason it's happened is because everyone's been so vocal about women's health. People like you and the Australian equivalents are talking about menopause and sharing their stories, and it's happening on all sorts of platforms, and it's making a difference. So it's not just about your brand and relating to other people. It also makes a difference in terms of policy, because that hits those policymakers. They pay attention. They're like, these influencers are out there. This is going to be great if we can get them talking about our menopause clinics that we are funding, whatever it is. So it makes a difference. So I just wanted to come full circle back to you there.
I have to say something about that, because in Davos at the World Economic Forum, one day the president of Spain comes into my lounge, just saying, as he should. And he says, I've been dying to meet you. I said, why? He says, because you're going to be so proud of me. I said, okay, I'm already proud of you that you're coming into my lounge telling me I'm going to be so proud of you. What'd you do? He says, I created a new policy for menopause.
Yes, yeah, workplaces, policies, yeah.
Okay, don't get too excited about it, because I think and so, not intentionally, but maybe intentionally. And he said, you'll be so proud of me because I created a new policy that I'm now going to not only give women time off for their periods every month, and of course time off for caregiving, but also for menopause. Isn't that great? And I said, did you already implement the policy, or are we going to discuss? Because, oh no, it's implemented and it's running and it's amazing. And I said, it is. I said, that's awesome. I said, but can we have a discussion about it? And is there room to amend a little bit?
Yeah, and because we see workplaces creating menopause leave, and there is research to suggest that maybe that's not the best approach, that maybe you want to have some kind of health leave that men can access too, so that they're not,
Well, because think about it. I mean, you're going to hire a man or a woman. They're both equally qualified. Boom, boom, boom. And yet, what goes in your head? And it's not unconscious bias, it's conscious. Yeah. She's going to take off at least 3 months for maternity leave. She's now going to take off time for menopause. She's going to take time off to take care of her snotty-nosed kid every time they have a problem at school. Then she's going to have periods and be bitchy, bossy, and emotional and all this stuff what do men have? And I said, so if you do that, no one's going to hire, including me, I'm not going to want to hire a woman. I mean, with all those things. Instead of talking about the powers of the feminine, which is the essential critical skills of leadership. Let's talk about that versus everything that seems like it's wrong, even though it's a part of who we are and our defining nature. And he goes, God, I never thought about that. He said, how much do you charge to consult? I said, I'm free. I said, as long as you activate change. And he says, great, I'm your new student.
Excellent, yeah. I might just add, so in the government case, the Australian government case, that they are doing like menopause clinics, which is trying to offer additional care, because women were going to GPs and not sort of recognising, the GP was not necessarily recognising that it was menopause, or women like me went in and I was like, I'm going through menopause, and the doctor's like, let's take a blood test and slow down. But because I'd read so much literature on it, I was just thinking, it must be that, like I'm having mood swings, and it turned out I had a thyroid disorder that was treated entirely different.
By the way, the thyroid pill gives you dry mouth, FYI. I couldn't figure out which hormone it was. I think it's that one.
Yeah. So, I didn't expect to be here talking about menopause, but yeah.
Okay, tell us something we wouldn't know about you.
On LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Oh, like you wouldn't know from my LinkedIn. I don't really share that much on LinkedIn. I mean, I do with the vibe of the event. I am very open. A lot of what I share tends to be stories. I am very political, and I know that's different to the work you do, and that's fine. So I do share a lot about that. I might share something I got annoyed about today was when I got called an influencer rather than media and a journalist, and a group of us got called influencers in a story in the Sydney Morning Herald today, and apparently we were given some kind of special access to the budget papers. And
they're so jealous of you.
And it was such a put down kind of thing, because we are independent media, and we've got this beautiful world of independent media in Australia that I encourage everyone to support. There's lots of different outlets out there like ours, including the women's space too. And it was sort of this put down from this real traditional mainstream newspaper world of like, what are they doing there? I've covered in that lockup, I think, 8 federal budgets. So I know what I'm doing. I've been a journalist for 10 years. And to have this sort of put down like that's what you are, you're out there as an influencer, it was really odd and amusing, because I actually wasn't in the lockup yesterday as well. So, and also I don't even have an opened Instagram account, which is the other part of it. I think it's a family thing. So that's one thing that I did share on Instagram this morning, because I was also really looking at like one of my colleagues in the independent media space who was kind of getting taken to task by a certain newspaper owned by a certain US-based media mogul that controls most of the media in Australia. And I was like, come on, like, what, you don't have an agenda? Like, what? Yeah, anyway, that's kind of what I do when I sort of share these.
Okay, but I want to go to branding then from there. Let's take that as a branding angle, because for me, I find that to be powerful and exciting. It means your competition is afraid of you. Because as an influencer, it means from a media perspective, you're contextualizing, you're giving all this great information to people and are leading the way. And so there's 2 ways of interpreting it. The negative, which might be how they wanted to hit you. But I see that as a positive of, you are creating the news that people want to read.
That's how I take it. And so Hannah Ferguson, who was the target of this story, go and look at her she's bigger on Instagram than LinkedIn, but go and look at her post, because I thought it was really powerful. Yeah, it's this sense of having this place as independent and serving our audience. And you'd get this too, that need to serve your audience. And also this need about the world that we live in right now is just this war for attention. I know I don't like to put it in that kind of negative connotation, but it is. Everyone is competing to get these messages heard, and sometimes we need to do it in a way that is true to ourselves. For me, sometimes that is expressing a bit of outrage. That's how I do it. I know that's not for everyone. And
that's called passion.
Passion, that's a better word for it. I'll tell my husband that it's not all outrage. I'm passionate, that's it,
You're passionate.
Yeah. So, we need to be able to talk to audiences in a way that they will respond and hear from us, because that's how it is. There's so many outlets that are so entertaining as well. So we're competing against Netflix in a way. It's more interesting probably to go on Netflix and watch whatever's the latest show there than it is to scroll through.
I watch them all.
Yeah, exactly. So we need to, you need to meet those often niche and smaller audiences in a way that suits them, in the way that responds to the fact that they are getting bombarded by so many messages everywhere. What is going to make your message matter to them?
Okay, that's where I wanted you to go. That's branding. And how do you differentiate yourself from everyone else? Because you have a lot of competition in news and journalism. And what you just talked about was where you stand out from everyone else. And I think that is so incredibly important, to write your profile in a way that is your value add, that is your differentiator, that is not on the defense, it's on the offense of who you are and what you do and why it matters. It's what's your why. And so if I asked you that question of what's your why, what would it be?
Really uncomfortable now.
Good. That's good. Get comfortable being uncomfortable, because the uncomfort place is where change happens.
Yeah, I know. So I know that the why and the what gets a little bit. We're a small organisation. I've got a co-founder, and so I kind of take myself as an individual out of this a little bit and think about the brand of Women's Agenda. I do that for other reasons also, is that I don't necessarily want that brand to be any one person. And we've been really cautious about that over the years too, to make sure that there is a team there as opposed to relying on any one person. We've been looking at how we've launched a member model. We're actually looking at all the messages and the things that we do. And we did this great reader survey to get what people think of us and what they think of us when they think of women's agenda. And the thing that was coming up was trust and independence and just all these words that I was really proud to see. Really shared that with my team, and it was just the best thing to be able to share. So this is what people are saying about us, because we can get a lot of trolls. I'm sure everyone has dealt with that too. You would deal with that a lot. And so often you see the negative comments and you take that as the world, but you don't necessarily see the people that are reading the content every day until you go and do a big reader survey to see what they think of it. And we sort of saw this, what we saw was this passion in our audience too, and we wanted to respond to that passion. They're an audience that want to make change happen, and they want to move things forward, and they're deeply concerned about the state of things right now. And that's what we see as our passion and our why, is to ensure that they are getting these stories and that we can support them in getting these stories to more people so that people can see the urgency of some of the issues that we cover.
I like that.
So I'm Dr. Nici Sweaney. I'm the CEO of AI Her Way. So we're an AI consultancy firm that go into businesses and help them work out how AI can help streamline their operations and systems. But my particular focus is really on ethical and responsible use of AI. I'm an ex-academic and data scientist, so a classic #nerd that developed my own company really as my own call to action, I think. I think the one thing you probably don't know from my LinkedIn, if you look at it, is I'm a serial kind of entrepreneur. I had a stand at the markets when I was 12 of handmade lip balms with hand-drawn labels. That then morphed into making 3D cakes for a little while, which then morphed into sewing bikinis, which then morphed into a children's label, which then morphed into business consulting, which then launched into an online fitness business, which then led me to go on stage and win competitions in bodybuilding for a little while. And then it launched into having this career in academia for 17 years. And like many women in the room, having a man tell me no. So he told me that no, I would never have a stable job in academia. No, you would never compete with your male colleagues. And no, we would never offer you job security because you care too much about teaching and don't bring in enough research money. So I said F that and started my own company. So that's what you probably don't know from my LinkedIn. But
I like the F that.
Yeah. And the why for me, I'm really concerned with what AI means to future generations, but my overall why, I think it's a great tool, but really I just see it as my vehicle to ensuring that women can launch and scale their dreams and take up more space and make more noise. I think women have been too small for too long, and that fills me full of not rage but passion. And my whole vehicle is let's use new tech to address all of the gaps that are apparent to us in our society right now and actually do something about it. And we can lead that way. And we haven't really had that opportunity ever before in history to be the leaders of this particular change. And we do have that right now.
Oh gosh, from lip balm to AI.
Yeah,
and that's
I even
a
had
natural
little fairies
evolution.
on the label and everything.
And now AI can create the labels for you, so it would save you.
Yeah,
a lot
that's
of time.
right. You know, logo design, the whole business plan. Yeah.
You know, I did hear something the other day which I was obsessed with, and this is a branding conversation. We say AI. What does that stand for?
Artificial intelligence.
And so I was interviewing Deepak Chopra, and I don't think he coined this phrase, so I'm not giving it to him, but he taught this to me because I didn't hear it from anyone else before. He says it's not artificial intelligence, it's augmented intelligence.
Yep.
Augmented intelligence. And if we think about it, because so many of us, people say we're afraid of AI and getting in and, you know, whatever. And if you actually think about it, it's not replacing you, but actually helping you become more efficient, more productive, and getting rid of the basic stuff. It gives you that human brain power to be doing the creative, innovative things that AI can't do for you.
Yeah, and I think from, you know, teaching thousands of people, I would say that women by and large struggle more with that sense of I'm cheating or cutting corners by employing AI to help me. And what I always kind of say is, you know, you've just become the CEO of a limitless company, and Elon Musk probably can't make a Tesla from scratch, right? But like, we don't think that he's any less of a nutbag genius that he is, right? So we're all kind of like, oh my God, you've got a very successful brand and company. No one's saying that's less authentic because you didn't make that product. And what I say to women is, if AI is enacting your dream, that's still your dream. That's your power. You now have unlimited resources and people in the form of augmented or artificial intelligence that can help you with that dream. And that's like someone just, you know, plotting a bag of cash on your desk tomorrow and being like, go and make this happen. Westpac can do that too. But, like if you can't do that, you can have AI.
Okay, I love that. And I just want to go to brand again, because this is about branding. You used language that I kind of am obsessed with, which is being the CEO of a limitless
company,
organization. So there's a lot of AI companies out there today.
Yes.
A lot of journalists, a lot of media companies. We now know how we differentiate there. How do you differentiate your AI platform?
I think I differentiate my AI platform from being someone that is not a tech bro or neither someone that is overly cautious about AI. So I see my power in that I give people skills to be able to assess new tech and make an evaluation about how it can serve them in a way that contributes to global good. So I see my brand as much bigger than just teaching people about AI. I see my brand as making sure that good things happen on a global scale, and AI is just the tool to get us there.
By the way, AI is really good at helping you decide what to wear in your closet too. There's so many.
I am completely dressed by AI. By the way.
Really? Are
Yeah.
you?
Yeah,
Which one?
Twice a year. Twice a year, I do shopping with AI tools, and I give it my Pinterest board and then pictures of me, and I describe my age and my style, and I give it a budget, and it writes down the list of all the items that I should go and get, and that's how I've dressed myself the last 2 years.
Can I say how I used it yesterday, which was really
I want to hear.
I had I had a scan for osteo. What do you call it? Like a DEXA scan. And so then I said to the physio, I was like, can you just give me the results? I want to kind of train for something, but I need to know if there's, I just wanted to know, am I going to start breaking my ankle again? And she's like, just upload it to ChatGPT. And so I went in and uploaded it, and I put in all my stats and things, and it actually gave me so much more than what any doctor could give me in that moment, because I was then asking further questions. I was like, well, what if I did this? What if I did this kind of training? What do you think I should, I'm not getting these vitamins. What else could I do here to support me? And it gave me all the results from that DEXA scan that you can't necessarily understand by yourself. And all I did was upload the image. It was great. And think about the time saving that we can access with that as women, things like that, where I don't want to have to go back to the doctor to get those results.
Okay.
I probably should do them.
What you both just did, by the way, was contextualization, which is another power of the feminine, just saying. Storytelling. You're not an influencer, you're a storyteller. Connecting the dots of shared lived experiences, which to me is priceless.
Yeah.
And I just want to go to some of the challenges we've had in AI to go to the solutions forward, because I always look for the positive, proactive. But did you know, which you do know, and I've learned this a lot because data in, data out, bias in, bias out, junk in the trunk continues to perpetuate itself. And of course, AI picks up historical data to then plant the future. Why we need women in AI, from the design to the business side, to the user side, to all of that, is for your data to be in the system so that it is representative and reflective of the world that we serve. But here's what I did not know, which is why being here in a hospital is so important. Health, including women, have not been in clinical trials until 1993. So imagine all the pre-data, which is why chronic disease, misdiagnosed heart disease, misdiagnosed menopause, everyone just attributes it, oh, you must be in menopause or whatever it is, why it is so important for AI, or even the gaps when you take maternity leave, and typically men don't. That's 3 months of your algorithm not going into a system, like just basic stuff. Maiden names, when you change your name, it doesn't connect your given name to your married name, because men don't change their names. Or the latest one that I realized that blew my mind, women in general, we co-author, we share everything. When you are writing a paper or an article and you co-author, only the first name on that gets picked up. The rest gets dropped. Boom, gaps in the data. Yeah. Which is why what you're doing matters so much. Yeah. And branding with conversation and examples and stories and how this connects the two of you together is so incredibly important.
And I think also branding from a point of view of understanding how your brand shows up in AI as well. So, you know, we some people in this room were at Tory's International Women's Day event that I spoke at as well. And one of the things that we touched on was this move from SEO to how do you get your name in AI. And for me, that's a really important thing that we probably all need to start thinking about, because you have issues like that. Then you have the fact that no women are making AI. Then you've got the fact that we've got, a big kind of movement in terms of diversity, equity, inclusion and what that looks like and which tech bros are signing up to that and which models we're particularly using. But then we also have the more data that is in there, the more likely it is that those AI tools will recognize that you're somebody to be talking about. So it's not that you're the best, it's just that there's the most. Right? Data is about recognizing patterns. And so when we're women and we're concentrated on often quality over quantity, but there's a bunch of dudes out there throwing out quality, then when you ask for advice or suggestions about who to talk to or a consultant to ring or, which media outlets, align the most, that's going to return male-heavy information unless we are really cognizant about how we use it and the data that we put out into the world as well.
Amen. Or being a conscious leader. You don't have to be a woman. You just need to be a conscious leader and be aware of where the challenges are today versus how we can close those gaps tomorrow. Yeah. And so that goes perfectly to you, Tory, of branding and SEO. Everyone understands SEO, search engine optimization. Okay. So go from there because you are the queen of helping us all with understanding our brand value. First of all, tell us what we don't know about you on LinkedIn.
So my first LinkedIn photo was with me cut out with two other glamorous people, and that was my profile shot. Yet I was representing the world's top performing brands, celebrities and influencers, but I wasn't owning my own worth. Yeah? So I want to switch that into who I am today is a global brand strategist who stands in her authentic truth. So when I first decided to get rid of me without those other two people on the left-hand side, I had to actually have a photo shoot. And I remember that the photographer was like, oh, Tory, you need to retouch, you need to do all this stuff. So the first shots that I had when I actually stood in my power were retouched. Now, if you go to who you see on LinkedIn today, I get photographs all the time. They're not retouched, and sometimes I don't wear makeup. They are the most popular because I'm standing in my authentic truth. And then the other thing I want to say is I worked with a copywriter when I first decided that I was switching out of 12-star into Powerful Steps. And I remember her telling me, Tory, you need a hook. And I mentioned this in the article with Women's Agenda, had a little bit of a mini panic attack because she said to me, you have to say that Drew Barrymore ended your PR career. And I said, oh, I can't say that. That's not the truth. But it was definitely the catalyst. And she said, no, Tory, it's what they click on and how you tell the story that matters. So I actually ended up running with what she said. And it was the best decision of my life because I was actually able to explain the reason why, which was because she was standing in her authentic truth and it was time for me to do the same. So we always need to lead by example. The other thing that copywriter wrote in that article that was, when it was articles on LinkedIn, was that I got married for the first time at 46. And I was like, oh, do I really need to put that in there? And she goes, I bet you get a lot of DMs. Now, obviously, the Drew had a brand SEO effect, but actually, I knew people were reading what we wrote because the DMs exploded with women in their 40s and 50s who are in these leadership roles saying, you really got married then? How did you do it? I was like, I met my husband on Bumble. So then it's like there was another layer to taking them on a journey. So, I've represented some of the best brands in the world. One of the biggest retail launches in global history was Zara. Into this market, it was 22,000 people, $1 million in sales. And I had the opportunity to work with a man called Jesus Kavira, who was the most powerful man in communications in the world. And what a privilege to work with him. And I remember him saying to me, Tory, it's the way you show up. And the way he showed up taught me a really valuable lesson. And I really carry it forward in everything that I do. We had all the media from all around the world. There were queues for days. Australia had never seen anything like it. And I said to him, I need you to do this interview with CNN. And he just said to me, and he looked at me dead in the eyes, and he said, Tory, look around the room. It's not about CNN, it's about the people. And guess what he was doing? Packing the bags for the customers in Zara. So when you carry forward and you work with the world's best, it's not about you, it's about us. And also it's about being in your authentic truth, So always remember that it's not about the glossiness of being a leader, it's about the authenticity of what comes from the heart.
I love that. And I just want to go to Powerful Steps because I love the name. I think it's so spot on. And can I go a few minutes over time? Because I want to give you a wrap-up question too. I was on an airplane. Do you know who Tony Robbins is? Okay.
I had a Tony Robbins moment before when you got Rosie
really?
up. Yeah, I was like, very Tony Robbins.
Have you ever done the fire walk?
I've done it.
Okay. So remember my Procter & Gamble story? Okay. That same day, I get on an airplane to go back to, I was living in New York or LA, New York at the time, to fly back to New York from Cincinnati. And who was seated next to me in coach? Tony Robbins. I didn't know who he was. So remember, this was in 1998. So count how many years ago that was. He wasn't the Tony, he still was a giant, but he was sitting on my lap because he was in the middle seat and I was in the aisle and I wasn't giving him my seat. So he's like on my lap and he looks at me and he goes, "How was your day?" I said, "It was really shitty." And he said, "Well, why?" And he said, "Well, what's the problem?" I said, "Well, why is it so hard for big Fortune 500 companies to change? Why is evolution so hard?" And he said, "Let me tell you something," and this is powerful steps. He took out that napkin again and he said, "Let me show you something." He says, "You can't look at change as one big giant step. You got to break them into steps." He said, "Imagine you're in a 100-story building. You get in the elevator, you push 100, you go from 1 to 100, shoot your way up to the top." He says, "But what happens when the elevator's broken? You have to take the steps." And I'll never forget this. And he ba-boom, 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 and he drew steps. He said, "Imagine you went to step 1, 2, 3, and then number 4 is that big X because the stairs are wet, fresh paint. What are you going to do? Go backwards or find a way to go over it and to zig and zag when you need to?" He says, "And then one day you get to the 100th floor and you look back and say, wow, look how far I've come." And you take this big giant knot in your hair and take it into little tangles and get rid of those. And that's how change happens. He said, so you have to break things down into steps. And it was the best branding visualization I have. So basic. It seems so obvious, but it's not until you make it obvious. And that was that. And I realized that's how there's always a solution to your problem if you turn them into steps instead of this big giant thing that people will run away from, like this versus like this, because there's a solution. So I want you to just lay out, and then we're going to do this as just like a lightning round of some sort. 2 things, and I'm going to give you time to think about them. Number 1, powerful steps. What's a powerful step forward for branding as advice? And number 2, I'm chief troublemaker. If I said you're chief blank, what would you be?
Well, number 1, I'm an authenticity queen. So that's your second answer. But the first one is, I always say a small step is a powerful step. It really doesn't matter about the size of the step that you're taking. It actually matters that you took it. Because what it does is energetically, it puts you in forward momentum. And how do you get into forward momentum? It's by backing yourself, believing in yourself, and knowing what's possible. It doesn't matter if you fail. And trust me, we've all had failures, all of us. But if you view the failures as life lessons, you're able to level up and take more powerful steps forward. In terms of a framework, like, walking away today, what are you going to do? Like, you've met so many people here. How do I take powerful steps? How do I encourage other people to do it? It's walk out of the room and make 3 coffee dates with 3 very different people. One with someone that you met here today, one with someone you want to partner with, and one with someone completely outside your comfort zone. And I always share this story about, well, how did you get the email from Drew Barrymore? You're just a little Aussie with an agency in a faraway country. And it's the fact is that I took small steps and then they became powerful steps. So what lands in my inbox and, with people like Shelley coming and saying, hey, I want to fly to Australia for 24 hours to be with you. Why do these people say yes? It's because I'm invested in coffee dates. I'm invested in connection. I'm invested in making every single decision that I make anchored to my values, which is passion. I'm passionate about creating and building brands. I'm passionate about building a global community of impact makers. The second one is integrity, because I don't like working with assholes. Never have, never will, and I have that choice. And the third one is really important for everyone in the room. It's delivery. If you don't deliver, people will not talk about you, people will not advocate for you, and you will never grow. So even if you fail, look at what part of that delivery you failed at, and next time, get up again and make a difference.
I love those. And by the way, I wouldn't just come anywhere for 24 hours so far away, except for all the things that you just reinforced. I think that's so great wisdom. So you would be the chief authentic officer.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, this is a bit of a sidebar conversation because, you know, I love a good story. But I was in Bali last week with my husband and his dad had just passed away. And I remember seeing, I mean, we all scroll on Instagram, and I remember seeing that there was this circle group with this lady who had worked with quite a few high-profile people.
Amanda de Cadenet.
No, it was a different one. But she said, everyone just sits somewhere in the room and there's going to be a card underneath you and I want you to look at it because this is your message. And my card was authentic truth. And it wasn't my time to like share in the circle, but I was like, I've shared my story. I've done all this. And I was thinking, what am I missing here? And anyway, she spoke and I said, well, my card's authentic truth. And she goes, you need to be louder and prouder of who you are. So I took that and it actually sits on my bedside table. And every day I think, you know what? It's not about me. It's about the people that I serve in my authentic truth.
So good. Authentic truth is very good.
Powerful stuff. How do I follow that? Okay, so we did not have these questions in advance, and here I am telling how to do powerful steps. So I did get a few minutes to think about this. So one thing I would say is that in that progressive steps forward is that, first of all, we talk about making mistakes, and I think it's important to remember all the mistakes that men have made before you, which happens all the time. And I mean, I can think of a really big one that happened yesterday in a certain text message exchange where certain war plans were revealed. And you know when you accidentally send the email and you're just like, oh God, I really stuffed up. Just think of that moment. That was bad.
Real news. That wasn't fake news, right?
Yeah, that was next level of leaking it to the editor at The Atlantic. So not leaking it, sorry, accidentally including the editor of The Atlantic in the text exchange about these war plans. So just remember, there are plenty of examples like that out there that occur of mistakes. And unfortunately, we do get held to a higher standard. And that's what really, really can be really tough to deal with and annoying for women. So in terms of moving forward, it would also be about, I feel like we can sort of wait for opportunities or think that something needs to be the right time or that we need to be the right level of, the right career level or the right number of years of experience before we can have sort of the permission to step forward and do that thing or to apply for that thing or to start that business, whatever it is. And unfortunately, that doesn't work for women because we don't tend to have these linear career trajectories. So it's really important that you just try to grab the opportunities as you can. And that's for everyone, particularly to young women out there as well who are here today. That's what I think is, you don't, just because somebody has a better title or has an office or is, more experienced than you, it doesn't mean that they're actually any better at the role than you. So experience is obviously important, but there are certain things that you'll find that you are able to do a lot better than people with that experience. So to really keep that in mind and to remember that we don't have these linear career paths. You may have career breaks, whether or not you have children, you may just wish to have a career break. So to account for that. And finally, just on AI, it's the whole thing about if you don't do politics, politics will do you. If you don't do AI, AI will do you. So we need to get involved for all the reasons that you said as well. It's so important that we can be in there addressing the bias that is already embedded just by using and participating in AI. So get into it, get engaged and involved in it. And the more you can look out where things are happening that may be affecting like SEO. Like I'm looking at the Google search result summaries at the moment, and I'm seeing how they're pushing links and news links down the bottom of the fold of a phone and on the page, and that counts when you Google people's names as well. You might find that all of a sudden you're getting a Google overview, an AI overview thing instead of the links to maybe your website or something else. So keep track of those things and see how you can address them. It sucks that it's happening, but it is happening. And then see that there are likely steps or there are things that you can do to make sure that you are getting ahead of those issues too. The CEO, the Chief
Blank Officer.
I know what I want to be, and I'm going to say it so that it will help me be it. I want to be the Chief Optimism Officer. Thanks. It doesn't entirely align with how I operate, but I am a bit of a pessimist, and with everything, because I do sit there and I do look at the issues constantly that we have going on globally and in Australia, and I get so worried. And even as you're talking about AI, I'm just like, we have to have optimism. If you don't have optimism, what do you have? And if you have optimism, you have action and plans, and you can move forward and you connect and come to an event like this and meet other people. And I'm so happy that I've got ideas that we can do together. But to come here and actually make a difference. So Chief Optimism Officer.
Okay, I want to say one thing about that. I'm happy you chose that because that is choice. You can be whatever you want to be. And a pessimist is reactive. An optimist is proactive. It's leading the conversation, not following. And so I actually love that you chose that one.
Thank you.
That's a good one.
I was thinking, well, I obviously had the most amount of time, so this better be the good answer. So I think I'm going to go with two kind of facets to the step forward. So one is a meta step forward, right? I was writing about this the other day, that I think that women are so often created not by promises that are held, but by promises that have been broken. And I think the stories that have resonated with me today, and you could feel the emotion in the room, is there's been a lot of broken promises for all of us, right? And that creates the people that we want to be. And I think the amazing thing about women in business is they often create business from a place of purpose and wanting to rectify a wrong. Okay, they don't just see a gap in a market and want to make a profit off it. They see something about the world that they want to address and make it better for them. So to everyone here, a step forward is knowing that that is really powerful. The stuff that screwed you over makes you a superhero, right? I often ask people, what's your superhero story? What's your Spider-Man moment? Spider-Man wasn't created by the spider biting him. Spider-Man was created when his uncle died and he wanted to justify the wrong, okay? So at a really big level, you're all awesome. And that's what I want you to walk away with. But at a really practical level, AI can be leveraged as a tool to help you see it. So often I talk to women about leveraging AI because AI is a middle-aged white dude. And middle-aged white dudes have a beautiful position in their lives of usually thinking that they're pretty hot shit. Right? And you can use AI to know that too. So you can upload your CV or your latest resume, or you can tell it about your hopes and dreams or your experiences or what your friends say about you. And you can say, help me to see, what are my strengths? What is my brand? What is my point of difference? What is the special sauce that only I have? And that can really help women to step into that power, because we often, unfortunately, need it reflected back to us before we start to believe it. But now you don't need some sort of guru or some pivotal moment to occur to you. You can open up one of many free tools and it can tell you just how amazing you are. And then the invitation is to actually believe it and do something with it. So I'm going to go with Chief Audacity Officer. Yeah.
That's a good one. I love that. All right. Well, I thought, we're over time. Can we take just a couple of questions? Okay. So if you have questions, I just want to say, one of the things I've also eliminated from my vocabulary is the word failure. We've all made mistakes, but if you don't try, you don't know, right? And if you don't put yourself out there, and I don't know if anyone has been on a safari, okay? Have you seen a migration? Have you seen a crossing where the wildebeest cross the river? And so it usually takes months because they dip their toe in, doesn't work, they keep going, they dip their toe in, they keep going, the wildebeest. I'm talking about wildebeest. And it takes that one brave wildebeest to take the plunge and go, and then the rest stampede and follow. The first one usually gets eaten by the crocodiles or the alligators or whatever's in that water. But someone has to take the first move. And for all of you female founders or entrepreneurs or women-owned businesses or just badass women, I always say you got to be the first, the second, the third. The first is always the innovator. You're building something that's never been done before. You don't have the money. There's no ecosystem. So you might make some mistakes. Look how many mistakes Thomas Jefferson made, or Thomas Jefferson or Edison or any of those people. You got to try, and you keep going and reiterating time and time again. The second is the copycat. They come in, they copy whatever you're doing, but they don't know what's under the hood and why you've zigged and zagged. The third is the sweeper. They come in on that shiny white horse. The ecosystem is built, they get the money, and they win the game. So I say no one's going to beat you at your own game. You got to be your first, you got to copy yourself, and then you've got to be the sweeper so that you own your narrative, your story, your business. And so I changed the word from failure, because who wants to fail? That's one and done. Oh, you're going to fail. So who's going to try something new? I say it's how much risk are you willing to take? How much risk are you willing to take? No risk, no regret. No risk, no reward. You don't take the risk, you'll have a regret. What would you rather do? Take that risk. And so if you think about it that way, it sets us up to try new things, to push the envelope, write the new rules forward versus having to go back and look at what's wrong, look at what's right and what's possible. Anything is possible if you want it. Anything is possible if you believe in you. Because if you don't believe in yourself, no one else will ever believe in you. So with that, let's just take any comments, questions, chief blank officer things, and spend 5 minutes since I'm overtime anyways, but I don't want to.
Yeah, well, we were going to do a wrap up together, so we've got about 10 minutes for Q&A. So I might just say thank you to Angela and Dr. Nici as well. That was brilliant. So there was a queue of people wanting to get to know you, Shelley, which is always a privilege to watch when you have someone in the room with you that creates and delivers an impact just the way you have today. So I'm actually going to pass it over to the audience. Who would like to ask a question? I know, Lou, you had a question because you were lining up outside.
Honestly, thank you. Hi, everyone in the room. I'm Louise Roberts. I'm actually a journalist as well. So I'm very interested to hear the thoughts around AI and how that's changed the narrative and the branding. But your points were terrific, I thought, especially around owning your persona in AI. And I think it's something Nici sort of reiterated as well. And I think that's certainly in my industry, and I've brought along a friend today, Joe Casametto, who's also a journalist. And we're finding AI's had a tremendous impact on our industry as far as how we produce what we do. I mean, with content now, everyone's a journalist, and I'm totally comfortable with that, but many journalists are quite terrified of AI and whether it's going to replace us or the emotional connection we have with interview subjects or how we interpret things. So I just wondered what your experience was perhaps of dealing with journalists and AI in that space, and how, if it's become tougher to kind of get your message through, or whether journalists are sort of serving up AI questions to you, which I just find terrible. I think that's an awful situation to be in. I know Joe and I have spoken about that, haven't we? A lot. So I'd be interested to know what you think about journalism now and your interaction with media with AI sort of looming.
It's a really good question. For me, I think that AI is a great copy editor and great at finding historical stats, and it saves me so much time, but it will never replace me, the human, creative, innovator side that has to put the thinking into what I want AI to give me back. So, I will always put all of my, if you're regurgitating shit, it's great for regurgitation, but not for origination of original thought. And I'm not normal. I mean, I think weird. It can't think weird with me. And so I will put in the weird ideas of, I want to, come up with something that is, it's stuff that hasn't been done. ChatGPT will, or whatever tool you use, will give you things that have been done and pull it back in a very simple fashion. So it's productive and efficient for me, but it is not creating the new trend that someone hasn't thought about, or the new weird question that is going to say chief blank officer. It might give me suggestions for that, but it won't know to ask me about that. So to me, journalism has elevated to a whole new level of giving you the freedom to go find and have those lived experience stories, and to pick the people that are representative and reflective. And it's so necessary more than ever before. And so I think it's opportunity for creativity and innovative thinking and pushing the envelope. And AI is your best friend. And don't get lazy with it. It should push us to be our best selves, that self that you always wanted time for, whether it's more time with your family. People always say, work-life balance. There's no such thing as balance. Life is messy. It's not 50-50. It's not so easy. You have one life with 5 dimensions. It's work-life integration, or whatever you want to call it. You have your family. You have your work. You have your community. You have your girlfriends or your friends. And the one we always forget about, what is it? Ourselves. We always forget it. We put everyone else before we put ourselves. 5 dimensions of life, and it's not an equal pie of 20, 20, 20, 20, 20. It's at every stage of life, you might have to prioritize a little differently. Sacrifice some things, prioritize others, and change that piece of the pie depending on your life stage.
And definitely, just to add on that as well, is don't rely on AI to tell your story. You are the story.
And by the way, AI, until we all get into the game, it goes he. I had to try for hours when ChatGPT first came out. I was on it saying she, because it kept saying he, because all the stories it was pulling was the he stories, not the she stories. Just saying. You don't want to become the he. Stay the she.
Just on AI, just while we were talking before, I thought I'd just chuck it into ChatGPT and ask the question, I'm a buyer's agent. I help people buy real estate. And I said, who's the best buyer's agent in Sydney? Just for the fun of it, to see what it spat out. And it spat out all these other competitors of mine, annoyingly.
And all men.
I don't know. But I just was thinking, can you train, if I feed information into ChatGPT, will that create then data down the track when other people ask the question? I didn't know sorry, it's probably a Nici question.
So
Or it's more Google
yes
stuff.
and no. So you probably, as one person, unfortunately can't manipulate 1.5 million books worth of data to just reflect your name. But it's a good start. So I appreciate the passion. Yeah, one woman can change the world. So something like ChatGPT is built, it's a data processor, it's designed to recognize patterns. If there's enough information about you on the internet and out there, it will draw from that and then you will fall into that. There's also the algorithm that actually codes how to pick a response as well. So this is where we get into the territory of it's potentially a little bit scary what's happening in terms of political alignment and diversity, equity, inclusion and how that's being embedded into algorithms. You unfortunately don't have a whole lot of control over that, but what you do have control over is how much data exists about you on the internet. If you're thinking about ChatGPT, it's usually now pulling live from the internet to come up with those suggestions. Otherwise, it's pulling from historical data. So ChatGPT stops at about May of last year. So just basically get as much as you possibly can out there, as many data points about you as possible to help in that, and you'll kind of rank above that. The other side is as users, hopefully you get smarter users that say, I want a buyer's agent that does X, Y, Z. And the more that you get known for serving a particular niche, the more likely it is that your name will come back in response to that.
Can I add to that as well, is the more you post, the more across different channels, and you're the expert in this with your team, the more that it gets picked up by AI and Google. So if you own your message, but you're also consistent with what you're posting, and don't worry about the likes. I always say, don't worry about the likes, don't worry about the engagement, worry about the action. So people see something. I can't tell you how many things I post. A good example, 100 women, 100 powerful stories for International Women's Day. I put a post up. I think 8 people liked it. We had 60% sold out, right? 8 likes. Then I was like, I'm going to post again. More tickets. Then we're the only event in Australia that sells out 10 days before International Women's Day. But did the likes reflect that? No. Did the likes reflect who was in the room? Absolutely not. But the community did. So don't, place an emphasis on, oh my gosh, I don't have the likes or the engagement. It's not about that. It's about the people that take action. Would you agree? Or
I don't look at any of that anyways. I mean, so I don't know. I don't care about likes.
But a lot of people do. Like, we have to talk about it because it's vanity metrics for a lot of people building brands.
But then they're not, anyone with vanity is not in it for
Correct.
the real reasons. I actually don't like the word authentic either. Because
I just said I was the authenticity queen.
I know. We haven't discussed this yet.
We'll talk about it over dinner.
Well, only because authentic, the word is real. Like, that's a real word. Authentic seems like it's the elevated word, even though everyone uses it, but you're real. You're the realest person I know.
You're going to give me another word.
Real.
Yeah, that's your. There you go, real.
You're real. So I've never looked at the likes and, all that. And, what you have to also understand is most people will share what they don't like. The haters will hate vocally. The people that like you are silent about no one, even when you look at Glassdoor or anything like that, look at it and they never qualify this. I actually said this to the CEO of Glassdoor that was with me in Davos. I said, you don't even vet or verify. So people you let go are of course going to write shitty things about you, or the people that, or your competitors can go in and write shitty things about. So I've never cared about that. I care about quality of voice and consistency and being real all the time. And then the real people that want to be in your world and in your community are going to be there. And so I've never looked at that. And we've had huge viral content because we create our own. Actually, my assistant that you talked about, Alan, he's 61. He's been with me for over 20 years. We do a lot of original content. And he was in one. You have to go and find this one. It was so good. We broke the bank. I think we had over 130 million views in like 2 days or something. And he was the star in it. And he's so quiet and shy. And he was so embarrassed because we walked down the street and people were like, I know you. And he became famous overnight. It was actually pretty funny. I don't know how many likes he had. He probably got a lot of likes. I don't get a lot of likes, but he probably does.
So it's about showing up.
And consistently. Because there's people that show up to be famous. And then they're not consistent. And then there's people that, this is legacy for me. I'm not going anywhere. And so I will continuously show up and put controversial or taboo topics out there that have not been told before, and it's pretty scary. I want to talk about scary. My mother says that wearing a new pair of shoes, we all know what those high heels feel like, they pinch the first time you wear them. But the more you wear them, the more comfortable you get. And it's the same thing as being a first and breaking news and breaking stories that might not be popular and liked, but they're important to tell and to share and to have lived experience joining in with how they feel about that. And then people think, oh, now I could do that. You paved a way. There's a story actually about the U.S. Treasurer of the United States. Her name is Rosie Rios. If anyone has any American bills, you'll look on it and see her name is the signed bill. So I spent a lot of time in the White House, politics, but not policy, not politics, and working on getting the woman on the front of the American $10 bill. It was when Hamilton, the play, came out, and so Obama loved Hamilton, so everything we had for redoing the bill got thrown out. It was supposed to be Harriet Tubman on the front of the 10. So I launched a campaign not going back because they were going to put women on the back of the bill in little tiny pictures. And I'm like, we're either big on the front or forget it. And so then it was going to be on the 20. And so I go to Rosie Rios' office, and on her wall, there was pictures of woman. I could say 30 to 40 women. Like, who the hell are all these women? She goes, they're all former treasurers of the United States of America. Who knew that? And I said, well, when did that happen? And don't quote me on this, but it was like Truman, Hoover, I don't know, somebody decided one day that he put a woman as the treasurer of the United States. Once he did that, he started I could either say he broke a pattern or started a new pattern. And he was a pattern maker. And from then on, every woman from then on was a woman. So it doesn't matter how many likes you get. Tell the stories.
So good. The stories are the most powerful. One last question. We might just go over at the back of the room if that's...
Thank you so much. First of all, I just want to thank you so much, Tory and Shelley. It's been an incredible day. I also want to thank Westpac because I feel like a bit of a ring-in, but I was a customer that got a special phone call. So I was like, yeah, sure, that sounds like a great day. I've actually reconnected with a lot of women in the room from all my different past lives. So that's been really awesome. And I'm a bit like you, where I'm 50 plus GST. I'm so using that. Thank you. And I'm finding it as I get older more difficult to elevate a pitch who I am or what I do. When I was younger, it was really clear because I had that's what I was or what I did. But as I've got older, I've had all these different experiences and roles and jobs. So when people say, well, who are you? What's your elevator pitch? How do you work that out as you get older? Because I'm so blurry about it. I avoid LinkedIn. I avoid all that stuff. And I don't know how to. So when you talk about LinkedIn, I just like, ugh.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to tell you a secret. So I used to tell the stories of brands and people. And now I help people do the same. So I had to do that for myself, and I felt exactly like you did. And it was like that midlife part of my life where I was like, well, what is my story and how do I share it? I literally opened up a Google Doc and I wrote my story in 5 parts. And I found the golden thread, which gave me the answer. It anchored me to my values, my intent, my pivot, purpose. And from there, I just started showing up, seeing what was resonating with my heart, and then like that. On my app, you can actually download it. There's a whole video series on it. And the 5 parts are because you got to own, who were you when you grew up? What did you want to be? I was always put in a box. My parents wanted me to be an interior designer, marry a really wealthy guy, and join a lot of clubs. But I jumped out of the box. I backed myself, went to London, worked for the world's biggest media companies, and fell in love with storytelling. Came back to Australia, had no money in the bank, and started my own business at 24. So in the 5 parts of my story, not only did I revisit my story, I understood what my power was. And that landed me to where I am now.
I want to jump onto golden thread because those 2 words is truth. I call it rose gold. That's my color. But the golden thread, it doesn't matter what your job is or your different iterations. It's exactly as Tory said, it's who you are that is your golden thread. And that is what you pull. That's your narrative.
Yeah, and that actually becomes what you attract. So because you take ownership of your story, you will never hustle a day in your life. You will just attract. And you will know what doors to walk through and what doors are meant for other people. And sometimes you'll have choices where it's like, well, I could take 2 different doors. But it doesn't matter which door you take. It's not a failure, it's a lesson.
And that could be your golden thread. Those life lessons, and that's why I say I don't care about my age. That's all experience. I just have more stories to tell, and they're real. They're ones you can't make up. These happened. This is how I've evolved. These were the next steps, the powerful steps I took forward as a result. And I'm so much better as a result of that. And I can share that. And not to say that's someone else's journey, but I can save them the shit that I went through. Make your own new shit up. don't have to relive the ones I did. I can help you through all those. Give me your new ones.
And on that note, thank you for taking a powerful step with us today.